Hey everyone, it's Tammy. I thought I'd take a little time today to talk about epigenetics and number one, clarify really what epigenetics is. It's basically the same thing as methylation that we talk about. Some people we hear refer to MTHFR. They talk about getting methylation tests. I hear the phrase being used quite frequently, over methylating or under methylating. This is all the same when we talk about epigenetics. And so when we hear these things, we're talking, we hear oftentimes the word that's frequently used when we talk about epigenetics or methylation is defects. I don't like to use that word because in reality, the body isn't defective. It's adapted. These genes are being turned off and on for good reason. You may disagree with that because you're saying, I have a health issue, and so how is that a good reason? Well, I want to just say this. The body is attempting to adapt to its environment. And by environment, I don't necessarily mean just the house you live in or the office that you work in or your community, the quality of the air or the quality of your water. I'm referring to even your stress factors. That's part of your environment. Your social interactions, again, that's part of your environment. People have a hard time understanding how our thoughts affect us, but if you take out of the equation, you have a negative thought, but you just have stress around something, you now have you actually are affecting and causing a chemical reaction in the body. So the environment is a major factor when it comes to methylation. And what happens is, like I said, the body will turn off. It sends signals to turn off genes as needed. You and I can't discern what's really needed. But the body knows what it needs. Now, if your chemistry is already imbalanced, if you've already had histamine problems, or you have been taking medications, you've altered the chemistry in your body, food additives, the colors in your food, artificial sweeteners, these are all chemicals. I mean, for goodness sake, caffeine is a chemical. I love caffeine. Caffeine is broken down, creates secondary metabolites in the body through the liver. And, but that actually can cause, depending on what else is going on in your system, we have approximately 10 million different variations in our genetics, in our epigenome. When we look at the raw data of one person's genetics, there's too many similarities in genetic adaptations to say that there's too many similarities. I was just going to say it that way. Where we start to see variances more significantly is within the epigenome. And but that said, that epigenome, like I said, switches things off and on. So overall, with all the genes that we have in our body, not everything is easily modified, but the epigenome is. And we already know that this can happen through our diet, through our environment, through our thoughts, the pharmaceuticals that are being consumed, like I said, the foods, the drinks, whatever we're doing, whatever we are inhaling, ingesting, applying to the skin, all of it has an effect on these epigenetics. And depending there again on what's going on within your body, overall, the body will signal to have a gene turn itself off. Now, again, you may disagree and say that that's to your advantage. Well, I'm going to say that it is to your advantage because the body is only doing what it can do given the instructions that it has. And so if you have other genes somewhere else outside of the epigenome that are malfunctioning, you're not getting the proper nutrients. Okay, so that's what happens is what they do is they provide the instructions to the cells to pick up the nutrients. And if this isn't happening properly, if there is a genetic adaptation somewhere along the genome, and you're not using nutrients properly, now you have what I call a misuse of nutrients. We do know that there are some times it'll swap out and use different nutrients. And I mean, it could be a vitamin C versus a calcium. I mean, it doesn't make any difference. I don't know, it's just that anything is possible. And when you get the wrong nutrient, as if you were in a chemistry lab, when you mix the wrong chemicals, you get a toxic chemical. You can have an explosion. I mean, you can have any host of problems that go on. This is what happens in the body. So if this is what's going on and you are exposed to high levels of a chemical or high levels of stress or what have you, and the body has to change things around in order to acclimate and readjust its own chemistry, it will switch something off. Now, what happens when that goes on is, there again, the cells aren't getting the right nutrients, and it doesn't necessarily mean that, I'm taking a breath because I'm getting ahead of myself. My head runs faster sometimes than my mouth can, and I know I can pause this, but I just would prefer to keep going. What goes on is it's a chemistry lab, and so you have alterations that occur with the body's knowledge that this is to your advantage. Now, over time, and without proper modification and or correction is another way to put it, you have a decline in health. You have systemic issues that build up. Now, with that in mind, there's another thing that goes on that I'm really present to right now that I want to share, and that is the digestive system. Because a lot of our chemical imbalances that occur due to poor digestive systems. So we're talking structural. I know I also said I was going to, talking cellular or genetics, but this all factors in. And the digestive system that we know, because part of my background is I have taught digestive wellness, we do know that the digestive system is passed on from mother to child. And again, depending on what is going on within the body's genetics, the digestive system will develop in such a way that it may not be functioning optimally. And so now you're not even assimilating nutrients properly. Whether breaking them down through your digestive system as well as being absorbed into the bloodstream in order to be used by cells. So this is why it's very, very important, and this can happen at a very early age. I mean, like I said, it's passed from mother to child. So you are having infants that are they're challenged in the sense of digestion. Not only are they coming into this world with genetic factors, genetic adaptations, if you will, they're also coming into this world with digestive problems. And the two of them combined, given that individual circumstances, now you have an evolution, if you will, of further breakdown at an earlier age. The bigger problem that I'm hearing out there is on the street. There's our youngest kids in treatment that I'm aware of are coming in at the age of 12 for addiction. And what concerns me is we have a lot of intervention programs. We have got a lot of prevention programs, but the concerning thing to me is the equation of don't do that versus I feel good when I do it. It's not making the connection. And how interesting is that? Because that's actually how I see genes working. If you're not making the right connection, then you have improper choices. You have a misuse of information, and now you've started the ball rolling. So now you have an example of how the external world is affecting the internal world. So you have somebody being told don't do it. They do it, they feel good, they like the way they feel, and now they've misused the information because they like the way they feel, so they keep doing it. And what's happening is these drugs are one of those factors that do affect our epigenome. And if we can start talking to our children at that level and we're helping them understand that this is something that they have a say in, maybe not when they're toddlers, but as adults and parents, we can certainly help our children to actually evolve and develop healthier bodies if we start recognizing and supporting the digestive system from the very beginning. We think that we don't have to, but there again, when we get into the epigenetics, and there's a lot of various genes that are not functioning properly based on whatever the mother was exposed to, the combination of the mother and the father, the environment that that baby was in utero. And I don't mean the condition of the uterus, I'm referring to the parental interactions do affect the way the stress in that baby. So, we've seen this numbers of times. Dr. Bruce Lipton even refers to it in his book, The Biology of Belief, about how our genetics are being altered based on the parental interactions and the stress therein. So it starts in the uterus. It starts in the womb. And as that child comes into this world, and based on the digestive system of the mother, it is passed on to the child. And now you've got the combination of the two. So being able to, number one, know this for yourself, and number two, be able to raise your children in such a way that they can actually modify their development into adulthood. And really recognizing the importance of not over supplementing, but really there's certain nutrients that are necessary depending on the genome. And I'm not going to list anything here because, again, it depends on the genome and what is going on with that individual. And so the basic you can do is really give your children, as wholesome foods, live foods that have enzymes in them so that these foods can be broken down. Probiotics occasionally, not necessarily all the time, and I'm not talking about yogurt or fermented food. What we do know is that the immune system, referred to frequently as the MHC, major histocompatibility complex, is one of the most adapted most adapted genetic complexes on the planet. This is where most of us are maladapted, if you will. And that uses histamine. So there isn't a person that I've met that hasn't had some level of histamine problems. Now that goes right back into the digestive system as well. So and I'm not talking about taking antihistamines here. If you've watched, and if you haven't watched any other of the histamine videos, you might want to look into those. But histamine can be deactivated and it can be metabolized very efficiently through nutrition and the use of essential oils. You want to make sure that you actually help the histamine receptors, and quercetin, which is a bioflavonoid, spelled Quercetin, will in fact actually support those histamine receptors. And digestive enzymes, and taking a probiotic, not, like I said, not necessarily using fermented foods, but really kind of supporting the body both ways. Somebody else has pointed out to me at one point, hydrochloric acid for the stomach, that really depends, again, on the individual. But you can at least start out with the digestive enzymes and the probiotics, but you want to do them both, and to begin with. Let me think here. So, like I said, what we're trying to do really is support the body to assimilate the nutrients in such a way that now the cells have an opportunity. Now, here's the thing. Epigenetics, the methylation pathway, can vary. It changes based, again, on your lifestyle, your diet, your environment, your stress levels. All of these factors go into how our genes turn off and on. Another thing that actually does modify genetic expression are the essential oils. Medicines are currently being designed, and they have been being designed for many, many years based on the study of plants. Now, when I say many years, I'm not just talking about 10 to 20 years. I'm referring to back to the time of when Merck, the pharmaceutical company, came out. They were extracting alkaloids at that point, and that's how the pharmacies came into being. Because apothecaries was another one that was coming around, but they were extracting plant ingredients, and alkaloids is a constituent. And opiates is another one. That's a perfect example. We had opium, people, and so we turned it into heroin. We've turned it into morphine. I mean, we've changed these opiates that we've now, we learned how to extract it from the plants, and we've converted them into medicine. So it's not just this, number one, it's not just the street drugs that change the body's epigenetics. It's everything that changes the epigenetics. And we know how to extract these constituents out of plants. We've been doing it for hundreds of years, not just a couple of years. And what they do is they study these plant ingredients. They pay attention to how they affect various cellular reactions, and then they turn them into a pharmaceutical. And that is to our benefit. I've said this before, it's to our benefit because you cannot rely on the quality of plants based on the growing season, based on the farmer, based on the producer. So you have to really so there is a benefit to having pharmaceuticals. However, that said, even using essential oils alongside the pharmaceuticals will add benefit, but you have to know what you're doing. You have to understand that there are interactions, there are contraindications. And so, for instance, if you're taking a blood thinner like warfarin, you don't want to use anything like holy basil, because holy basil has eugenol in it, and eugenol is a blood thinner. So any oil that contains eugenol. There's other oils that have blood thinning qualities, such as bergamot. Bergamot's not even recommended for pregnancy because of the collection of constituents. So I'm not going to just identify one. So there are reasons why you don't want to mix your meds and oils. There's also reasons, different health conditions, that you don't want to use specific oils with. So understanding what you're using these for and how they are interacting with the body is the most important thing. And you never want to use the same oil for very long. And by very long, I mean more than 4 to 6 weeks at a time, because again, the epigenetics is changing. The chemistry is changing. You may experience a healing crisis, which is good, but you want it to settle down and you might have to back off. So paying attention to how that works. I've talked about that in my, basically using grace, if you will, with the body and paying attention to where it is and what's going on. And so that's how you can modify genetic expression. You're probably wondering, well, why am I suggesting oils if you can modify genetic expression with the foods that you eat and, the chemicals around us? And it's a very good question. And the answer to that question is that the plants actually, they work, the way their DNA works is very similar to the way the human DNA works. So there's a lot of, this is the reason why, you can say we're all connected to nature. And this is the reason why I say we are nature. It's the way the plants function is very similar to the way our genome functions. So the plant genome, human genome, very, very similar. I mean, for goodness sake, they can find the same genes in us that are found in mice and monkeys. And for that matter, almost all animals. The FOXP2 gene is a gene that regulates speech and language, among other things. It's a genetic complex as well. It does a lot of signaling of neurochemistry. And that is in every animal that creates has a vocalization. So we do share genes with other animals, and so we are therefore nature. And the plants are like I say, the way their genome functions is very similar to the way ours function, and it's very complementary. And we are using the plants to understand how to modify genetic expression. And the reason why the oils are more beneficial, or at least working side by side with pharmaceuticals, or for that matter, your nutrients that you're taking or eating, is because it contains the live instructions, is how I want to say it. They are not synthesized instructions. So when you're partnering pharmaceuticals and oils, you want to make sure, number one, that they're not contraindicated, that there's not going to be any adverse interactions, and that's understanding how they're being metabolized in the liver. And then what you want to do is, and the reason why the oils support that is because they actually support the nutrient uptake. See, the pharmaceuticals affect, not necessarily, they inhibit, they also act as agonists, and they act as also known as a substrate, which is like, they just kind of like modify it, don't really, activate or deactivate, they just kind of enhance, I guess, support. Where agonists activate and antagonists inhibit. So that's how the pharmaceuticals are working, because of their collection of ingredients. Now, the oils, on the other hand, work to neutralize and stimulate the body to produce and do what it's supposed to do and produce the chemistry that it's needed. So you might think that that would be contraindicated when you're taking a medication. Well, let me tell you something. Unless somebody comes to me and says, I'm wanting to come off that medication and I'm working with my doctor, when I say I partner the oils, I don't partner them to do the same thing that the medication's doing. That's a really important thing to know. I don't want to work with the same receptors. I want to support the body overall and helping it to get the best use of nutrients as a full system, as opposed to trying to take the place of a medication. That's not what this is about. So when we talk about being able to modify the genetics, and it is about working with your doctor and telling your doctor what your goals are and letting them know that you're not wanting to stay on the medication, and if they think that you need to be on the medication, then it's up to you to work with your doctor and find ways to support the overall health of your body, so that these, the genes can give you the fullest advantage to these changes that are going on. But epigenetics as a whole is not a bad thing. It's just the body's alive and it is adapting for the sake of the preservation of the species. And yes, it doesn't look like we're being very well preserved with all of the health issues that we have. And this is the reason why I'm strongly promoting strong nutrition, and I'm talking about bio-individual nutrition, and I'm talking about the bio-individual use of essential oils. And I'm also referring to getting our digestive systems on track from the time that our children are being born and coming into this world. You may think that you don't need to worry about that at a very early age, and I'm saying that you don't need to worry about it, but you need to be cognizant of it. You need to be able to help your child assimilate their nutrients on a cellular level, so that their cells get the proper nutrients and not misuse things so ineffectively, so that we end up with a decline in health or early onset of any health condition. And again, when you start working with them like this and you start teaching them this, it actually becomes a drug intervention, a drug prevention, because again, as you know, if you haven't known me very long, addiction and health issues overall is my passion. And addiction is, as far as I'm concerned, most of us are dealing with, some form of addiction on some level. But the really, really serious ones, these folks are really having a hard time, and they need our understanding. They need us to be able to recognize that these adaptations are what's affecting them psychologically and physiologically and keeps them going back for more. It's not a weakness. It's not that they're bad people. It's just that they tried something. The communication from the very beginning was misused. It didn't connect. It didn't make sense, just like our genes don't make sense of everything that they're getting. And therefore, now we have a decline in health. So that's the biggest correlation that I can pull together for that. And I want to apologize. I know that I feel like I stumbled a lot throughout this video, and but I didn't want to really stop it. I wanted to kind of roll with it. Like I said, my head goes faster sometimes than my mouth can keep up with, and I'm trying to hear what's going on in my head and try to make sense of it for you as well. So again, I'm happy to interact with you, comments, emails. I'm here to help us find a way into a lighter form of health, and really enhance our wellness so that we don't have to live supplement to supplement and be chained to having to take a lot of things for a long time. Each one of us has the capability within us because we have this amazing epigenome that is modified on a regular basis and does support our well-being. We just have to understand how to work with it. That's the most important part. It's really learning how to work with the epigenome as opposed to fighting it and thinking it as a bad thing. The epigenome is not our enemy. It is actually here to help us, but we have to learn how to work with it. So with that said, have a beautiful day, and I look forward to speaking with you again. Bye.